Hi everybody and welcome back to the channel. If you enjoy our content, please support us by clicking the little subscribe button in the bottom right hand corner of your screen. Anyway, let's get back to the show. Today's guest, we're so lucky today actually guys, we've got a fabulous guest. Our guest today is Lindy Cowling. Lindy has worked in the arena of consciousness expansion for over 20 years. Her role has been interwoven with channeling, healing, hypnotherapy, mediumship, clairvoyance, and timelining, past, future lives, alternate realities. Her specialism is humanity's expansion of unified consciousness into the heart ascension. Lindy has been a guest on radio all over the world, both alternative and mainstream. She's also been invited on BBC Radio 1 twice. She loves sharing, guiding, and teaching. Lindy Cowling, welcome to Spiritual Talk. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I'm really looking forward to it. It's lovely to meet you.
Well, one of the things that we also want, and you've done so much, there's so much there in that introduction, there's so much that we could talk about. But I first came across you 7 or 8 years ago when you were talking about twin flames. Now, twin flames has been a recent phenomena, and a lot of couples talk about, and can you kind of tell us essentially what it means to be a twin flame, or even how we recognize being a twin flame?
Yeah, and thank you for asking that question, because really that is very relevant to my own expansion of consciousness and my own ascension process and the path in my life that changed for me in 2010 when I went through that particular experience in its original form. What I mean in its original form is what's known as twin flame union, way back in 2010. So I had never heard of the term, had no preconceived idea, which is sometimes the best way to learn something. I'm very much experiential, which means learn with my boots on the ground. And I came into connection with someone that literally changed my life, in that on meeting this person, I had this massive heart expansion. So obviously the area over your heart is your portal to your own expanded consciousness. It's the time machine, it's the TARDIS, it's your multidimensional access to your multidimensional realities, pretty much everything. I didn't know any of this till it happened to me. That started opening up all that area. My perception suddenly widened, my consciousness expanded. With that connection, we were able to traverse through time. We went into a British pub to have a drink and morphed to 1930s Boston for 4 minutes. And wow, you can imagine this was mind-blowing when we didn't know what was happening. Every way we connected was crazy off the charts. Even with the intimacy side of it, nothing was the way it had ever been with anybody before. And it was more like let's say a tantric experience, really. Kundalini energy, the works. And nothing prepares you for it. You know, we were both working in the lines of therapy at that time. We would morph to multi-dimensional aspects of ourselves in front of roomfuls of people. It was witnessed, everyone saw it and felt it. It was quite extraordinary. And if you ask me what a twin flame is, in its, let's say, original form, because it has been bent, distorted, and made popular in all sorts of distorted ways over the years that followed from that. But in its original form, it is an aspect of your consciousness or your soul showing up in the body of someone else. So it is an aspect of you in the body of another vehicle. Sometimes they can be in this reality at the same time as you. Sometimes they're off planets, because part of our so-called junk DNA is galactic consciousness, and we are all linked to the stars one way or another. So sometimes they're off planet, sometimes they're on planet. They can be much older than you, much younger than you. Mine was a lot younger than me, lucky me. And they can come in all sorts of, all sorts of forms, really. So it's life changing, because it doesn't really get more of a wake up call than that, because it takes you on the path to your unification of consciousness. What do I mean by that? I mean that for millennia, human consciousness on this planet has been tampered with so that you are in a state of separation from yourself, separation from your own consciousness, separation from your multidimensional reality. Really, the path of unification takes you right back into that wholeness, and a twin flame is a huge jump leads into that happening. So you fast track through that. And let's
sorry,
say
Lindy.
I was an earlier wave of these, but carry on. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, Linda, I didn't mean to interrupt here, but and so for a lot of people that watch the channel won't necessarily understand the aspects of it. So are you saying that I'm a man in a body, I'm not whole until I meet my feminine half, if that makes sense?
No, that's not correct. There are many paths to unification. So you can become connected within yourself to your own consciousness without ever interacting with twin flame consciousness. It just happens to be my route and a popular route to get there. But it can fast track you towards that wholeness. So some people have true unified consciousness running within them from another way of getting there, because all roads lead to Rome. So they may not have had that experience, but they may get there by awakening in a different way, or a near-death experience. Sometimes there's people report this kind of thing. There are many ways that you can become unified, but in my experience and my specialism is it's through human relations. So how it happens through connecting with another person that is such a vast mirror for you, or such a big representation of you, or such a close match to your consciousness that stimulates that path to self-awareness, more of your own consciousness presence, your multidimensionality more present as a result of connecting with somebody that stimulates that path for you. So twin flames is only one of them that can do this nowadays, because we've come on leaps and bounds since 2010. Right. But twin flames was, let's say, the original one.
Okay. So we can still get there on our own.
Yes, you can, but it's more challenging on your own, because it's hard when you haven't got anyone to project, reflect, and all the rest of it back. It's much easier when you've got people, and it doesn't have to be in a love relationship. It could be friends that are able to hold that frequency or space for you to find your path to your wholeness and your unification. It's much easier with others bouncing that back and bringing that consciousness to the table, but you can get there in other ways. You can become unified in a multitude of ways. I mean, I've never actually personally gone down the route of things like ayahuasca and things like that, and that kind of side of it, but some people have. I mean, I can't really comment it because I'm experiential, so I talk very extensively about the experiences I've had with, and I haven't experienced that, but there are multiple ways that people find themselves accessing more of the consciousness that they are in a whole, more unified form. Twin flame union being just one of many now.
Yeah, absolutely. And things are moving quite quickly, or it seems to be, with consciousness. But how do we recognize? Because it does seem to be how can I say this? Not flippant, but a lot of people say, I've met my twin flame. How do you recognize if it's a false twin flame? It's not true. Is there hard and fast signs?
Well, there were when I was originally on the scene in this. I mean, I've been working in the energy of let's say the light work industry for 24 years now. But when I was originally on the scene, and that experience changed everything for me in 2010, there were hard and fast signs. But now those signs have blurred in to a lot of different people that aren't twin flames that are going through an awakening process. And you would say to me, why? Because we've evolved a lot between 2010 and 2024, a hell of a lot. So signs that were there, let's say originally we were talking about telepathy, you know, you having tasting the same thing at the same time, smelling the same thing at the same time, but you're thousands of miles apart in different countries. Telepathy, knowing if the other person was thinking intimately of you or even engaging intimately with somebody else, you feeling it all. Outer body experiences, etherically connecting, dreams, having this overwhelming love, this heart opening with one another, all of these things which are, let's say, the expansion of consciousness, but also spiritual signs were there. But now, fast track 14 years later, we're seeing this in the mass population, which means if you meet a catalyst, if you meet a soulmate, if you meet an ascensionary soulmate, if you meet matching consciousness, if you meet somebody that holds a compatible frequency to the frequency you're at, it can also stimulate all those exact same symptoms. And this is where the confusion comes in, because now everybody is saying, I've met my twin flame, I've met my twin flame, I've met my twin flame. Whereas if you cut through that, there's probably about a quarter that have met a twin flame, and the other 3/4 have met all sorts of connection that are also running the unified template. Why are they running the unified template? Because it's been like a relay race. The original twin flame union took the first baton so far, handed it over to the next lot, and basically we've evolved a lot in 14 years, which I was predicting. One of the first out there in 2014 on YouTube saying this would happen, is that we've evolved enough that the mass population are now running with the baton. It's the 100 monkey syndrome. You get enough people having these downloads and expansion of consciousness, it tips into the mass population, which happened about 2 years ago. So it's very exciting because this is not an elite, unique path for the few. This is an expansion of consciousness for the masses, and it's translated into the masses now. So everybody, if that is their soul's choice, because not everybody has chosen to ascend in this reality or raise their consciousness or meet someone that helps facilitate this. If it is their soul's choice, everybody gets a shot at this. Not everyone will take it. Not everyone's going to ascend in this reality. Some will ascend out of it. But it's available to all. And so we live in very exciting times, but also a little bit confusing for people because they are wondering, why am I feeling all these things? And you could say, is it a bad thing that they would then they'd leap up onto YouTube or Google and find twin flames? Because no, because all roads lead to Rome. If that takes them to an understanding of, yes, I'm on a unification path, hallelujah. Where we get into problems is, which I feel very strongly on, is if it trips them into the opposite of an organic unified process, which is the unrequited love program. I was blowing the whistle on this stuff years ago on YouTube, saying that there were minefields set up to trap people into cycles of suffering, unrequited love, believing someone was their love and they couldn't move on from that, people committing suicide because of it, people getting lost and suffering and becoming ill. And I was really got a hammering for blowing the whistle on this many years ago with many videos pointing this out. So I'm very passionate about that because I got caught in that loop. I lost many years of my life to it. And yet, had I not gone through the original experience, I wouldn't have helped millions. I wouldn't have become unified myself. My heart wouldn't have been in the lead, and all those things wouldn't have happened. So I believe it was all happening for a purpose. Can there be false representations of this energy? Absolutely. And again, I've blown the whistle on this many times. There is very strong negative interference with that template. Why? Because it's the most empowering template on planet Earth for humans. You get a human in their power, they're unstoppable. You get a human realizing they're multidimensional, that they literally are like time lords, that they are running infinite realities at the same time. You have an uncontrollable mass population who will not tolerate the baloney that is spoon fed to them from above. They will start asking questions. So it is the most heavily targeted template on earth. I can stand testament to that. And if you really want me to go woo-woo and you ask me who is targeting that template, negative extraterrestrial intelligence, the same intelligence that interfered at the fall of Atlantis and Lemuria. So they are the ones that have set up the minefields around it, because if you have people siphoning off into suffering and unrequited love programs, they are a constant source of food of which these energies eat. The good news is these energies are on the run. We have them on the run for the first time since the fall of Atlantis and Lemuria, and it won't be too much longer before we see the complete reversal of what's been happening and this mass unification be uninterfered with in the human population.
Hang on a minute. Oh, take a breath. That was a lot to take in, Lindy. So, okay, so we are multidimensional beings, which some of us know, understand, and to conceptualize that in a format for people that don't have that understanding, how can you give us a little bit of an idea how we operate like that?
Yeah, so basically, in the times of Atlantis and Lemuria, we came here already multidimensional and ascended. So our consciousness was sky high. We came here able to live in the knowing that we are in multiple realities, on planet, off planet, multiple places at the same time as here. And that didn't fry our brains. We just had this awareness. So if you think of this reality like an Xbox game,
yeah,
and you're Paul and I'm Lindy, most people are aware of that, but you are running thousands upon thousands of other Xbox games. Some you'll be a female, some you'll be a male, some you'll be galactic, some you'll be on planet, some you'll be off. In your past, present and future, because it's all happening now, all at the same time. So most of us are only aware of this limited field, but as your consciousness goes up, you start to access skills from those multidimensional realities, the other Xbox games that you're running at the same time. And again, I'm kind of living proof of that, because I've been able to access a lot of that in the last few years. People I know, the same kind of thing is happening. So it's an incredible thing, because you can actually draw skills that you've got from other realities that you're in at the same time to enhance this one. But it all is dependent on your state of awakening at the time. As your awakening goes up, I look at it like a ladder in your heart of consciousness. As it goes up, you access more of those skills that have been, let's say, dormant to you. So I'll give you an example. I had a spiritual connection last year. His name was Romario, and it was a very short-lived thing, unfortunately, but it was a big spiritual connection. When I was with Romario, I could speak Old Spanish. I have never learned Spanish, and even he didn't know all of the Old Spanish, and he said, "You're speaking Old Spanish." I could speak Old Spanish with him because I had, or let's say am having simultaneously, an Old Spanish life with Romario. I even named the village we lived. I Googled it. It exists. And I can speak it there, or am speaking it there. We look at past lives like the past, but it is not true. It's all happening now. So if I'm with people that can speak that language, I access it.
Okay, that was my next question. So basically what you're saying is past lives and future lives are in this moment.
Exactly.
So
exactly, and I've proven it. I proved it on BBC Radio 1 a number of years ago when we took Scott Mills. I took Scott Mills into what I then thought was the future, because I didn't have the awareness I have now. I'm learning, and my consciousness is changing every week, every month. But then I thought future was future, past was past, and we were joking about playing the Doctor Who theme. And we took him, or I say we, me and Spirit took him into what I thought was the future. We see a London bus in the desert. We're playing the Doctor Who theme. We're joking about saying, do you think the producers of Doctor Who will have this in the Doctor Who special, a London bus Christmas special in the desert? Of course they did, a year to the day. And in it, he's met this famous American guy spending time in America, and we're thinking it's the future. And 6 months later, he's best buddies with David Hasselhoff, and he's out there in America. So everything that we did came true. The only difference is I was thinking we were dipping into a future, but what we were dipping into was a reality that's running at the same time. That's how we can go backwards and forwards, in and out of the realities, because they're all Xbox games at the same time. I mean, it's mind-blowing, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay. So can I come back a little bit? So I mean, we got people like Eckhart Tolle talks about the importance of power of now.
Yes.
And there is a quantum theory, isn't there, around all of this in life? You know, the wave and the particle and the which way it should be round. But apparently we can change it round.
Yes.
And I don't know too much about quantum physics, but it's just amazing. But going back to that aspect of twin flames, and you said interference.
Yes.
So to help people understand more about twin flame, and there's a lot of it out there. There's a lot of it that influences people. Some of it, forgive me for saying this, people, some of it doesn't feel right. Some of it feels right. Yeah. Again, it's coming back to that understanding, because there will be people that are bombarded by YouTube, Instagram, all the social media. And like you said, it affects their lives, and they could end up doing something stupid, God forbid. Touch wood. So how do we stop that? How can people be empowered to know, is there something within them that can take back control? If they're in, say, like a negative twin flame, or is there something that they could do?
Yeah, the most important thing is, and where I've seen, where myself I got looped into this, and where I've seen thousands upon thousands of others get looped into, is where as humans we are more subject to be targeted is in what's called our pain body, or our emotions. So when we have very strong belief systems on something, and build almost like a myth or a fairy tale around something, and don't get me wrong, I'm not discounting how we genuinely love these people. I genuinely loved my connection, and I've loved every connection since. That the love is the genuine thing in it. You know, how you genuinely feel. You genuinely feel these feelings. But when, let's say, it's not working the way you'd hoped, it hasn't come together the way you hoped, maybe one or both of you is married, or you're in different countries, or there's strong religious beliefs or massive cultural differences, and the multitude of things, there's just an infinite amount of things that can come up. But the most important thing is going back to, is this connection bringing me joy or suffering? Now, yes, it is true that sometimes as part of our evolution, if we're butting heads with our own ego and our belief systems, we will suffer. And I've suffered a lot in that journey. So I'm not saying if there's any suffering, that's it, woo, that's it, pull the plug, it's wrong. What I'm saying is, if you just keep walking it back to your heart, is what am I gaining from this? Am I mostly suffering? Is it fluctuating? Am I happy? Really putting the microscope on, is this my belief systems? Because belief systems come up enormously in this process, twin flame or not. In the process of ascension, a raising of consciousness, every single belief system you had, whether passed down from your ancestors, whether passed down from the way you've been brought up, they will come up, and they will come up loudly and right in your face, really to be examined, redefined, sometimes let go of. And this is a way of your going into your own mastery. The whole unification ascension process is an exercise in your own mastery, is an exercise in taking your power back. where people lose power to this programming or belief systems, or they're living a life where they don't really want to be doing the job they're doing in the situation they're in, and they feel like, I have to, it's always been expected of me. It's almost like everything gets overhauled. People put the focus on the actual relationship with the person, but that really is only one aspect of it. All these, there's a saying of mine, all paths lead to Rome. All these paths lead to self-empowerment if you go the right way on it. The wrong way is to put your life on hold, hide yourself away, suffer, yearning, longing for someone that for whatever reason you can't be with in the way that you would like. And this does not just apply to twin flames, this applies across the board. And I do feel qualified to talk on this because I've been through this process enormously in very, very many ways that it haven't even been made public yet. So what I would say is that path to self-empowerment is to ask yourself, how much peace am I in here? And if I'm not in peace, how can I get there? What does keep coming up loud and clear in my head? What is the sticking point here? Because at the end of the day, your path to unification is part of it. Is we have to do our own thing. The person outside of us is never going to fix that for us, never going to do it for us. They can be a catalyst for that. They can speed it up. They can hold that frequency, but it will ultimately crumble, whatever it is, twin flame or anything, if we can't get back to that space within ourselves where actually I'm all right. I do have that love for myself. And I'm not saying it's an overnight thing. It isn't. I do have that love for myself. I am safe. I am whole. I do not need that person to make me whole. Then you invite so much more enriching experiences into your life with the twin flame or someone else, because you will have two people that are more unified, more conscious, more whole, coming together, rather than this concept of I am half of you and you are half of me really makes me angry. And I've come up against a lot of pushback on this, because it is a thing that I am half a soul and you're my other half, and without you I'm finished. And it is simply not true. You are on a path to recognizing that wholeness within yourself and coming together as a wholeness, whether that one is another aspect of your soul or not. You are still encouraged to stand in your wholeness and meet as wholeness, not two halves that make a whole.
Okay.
What it does make is a whole. And I don't mean a whole, I mean a whole. A cycle of suffering. It's been perpetrated, it's been put through that industry so that people are siphoned off into suffering. And I'm massively strong on this number because I've seen people suffer for years with it. So you're on a path to feeling and becoming whole within yourself. The other one might encourage you to that, and then you might meet up again, two people that are whole. But you do not need any other person to make you become whole. That is a path to self-destruction.
Interesting. Also, if you're in a position to be with your twin flame, if you believe it to be a twin flame, is that something that lasts forever? Or is it just, like you say, an enlightenment, giving that person the opportunity to become whole themselves? Do twin flames stay together?
I would say later waves of them, that is much more likely that they'll stay together because the consciousness has changed. So in the early waves of twin flames, way earlier than me even, those in their way back in the maybe 50s, 60s, people in those generations, it was much harder. And even for me, it was much harder because the consciousness on this planet was more polarized inside people. It was much harder. So you would normally get together, then blast it apart. It's a story all over the internet, which happens to be true in that form, and couldn't get anywhere near each other. Why? Because the belief systems, the programming in themselves, but in their ancestry, in the collective, was way too much a burden for anyone to process through. Nowadays, we have a later form of them. So I separate between twin flame union and Twinflame Unified Template. Twinflame Unified Template is a natural step in human consciousness, which I was predicting in 2014, which meant that template would become active in the mass population. So lots of people in their 20s and 30s are already running what we call unification new energy templates. They are the most targeted age range on Earth, especially men in their 20s and 30s, but particularly 30s. Why? Because they are the first in bulk that will fully ascend in the human body. It doesn't mean to say people outside those age ranges won't, but the first waves are that wave, and they've been the most targeted on Earth, particularly men. And I absolutely can qualify this with boots on the ground again. So it's an amazing thing, because we're at a time now where this has been switched on in the collective, because enough people carved the way through things like twin flame union, not just that path, but that's the one I'm qualified to speak on, shall we say. Enough people carved the way so that it tipped into the mass population, and now the mass population don't have to carve it in the same way. They don't have to go through that ignition, run away for years, not to be seen again, come back. That form of it has largely died out, because that bit part of the relay race is done. What we're getting is a much softer form of connection, where it's much harder for people to tell the difference between twin flames, soulmate, catalysts, ascensionaries, soulmates, matching consciousness. Why? Because it's softer, easier, more harmonious, less triggering, more balanced, because they're a later wave of the relay race. So they are not on the carving out. They're not on the laying down the sidewalks in the city and putting the drains in. They're in the go live in the city bit.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that sounds good for future twin flames. But what about those
Yes,
the early wave? What happened to the early wave? Is it? I mean, what happens if one twin flame dies? Is that?
And I've seen this many times, and I am not with the original twin flame either. So my original one, shall we say, back in 2010, went down a very different route to me, a very dark route, and that was that, which was devastating at the time, because I came out of a 27-year marriage for it, was absolutely would have died for that person 1,000 times over. The whole lot went down at the same time, and then I decided to do the next year's 10 years single and celibate. As a result of it, it's like, right, that's it, and focused on other things, because I thought, you know what, after that, and it took me a very long time to integrate and go through lots of stages that I had to do without somebody in my life. And I'm not suggesting anybody else has to go down my route. That was just my route, and I always do like to do things by extreme. But nowadays, like I say, the people that get around, and nowadays it's much lighter and faster.
So, I was just going to say, but could that also have meant to be, Lindy, in your own, sorry to be personal, in your own experience? Because it then you had that inner growth. You grew as a person.
Yes.
You concentrated on
I
yourself.
actually went through a unification template, the process, the way I'm describing it. So I had to become whole without another person making me whole. So he awoke that in me.
Yeah.
But then because he went down the dark side, it made me investigate then false twin flames, the interference side of it, the dark side of twin flames. These were big videos that I think got 250,000 views at the time. Wow. I was one of the first out there saying, hang on, there's lots of other things going on in that. And none of that would have happened had that not happened. So I totally agree with you. That was one of the most difficult, it's proven to be one of the most difficult parts of my life, and yet the most fruitful in terms of spiritual development and evolution, and the people I was able to help, but also for myself. So many amazing things when I come out of it. I mean, I wouldn't have been in the heart or any of those things, you know. So like I say, yeah, absolutely. And I'm all for that. YouTube channel of mine was all about using your own process as an example. I'm experiential, warts and all, you know. It's like, this is what it's like, this bit sucks, this is what makes it easier. And that's what I'm loved or hated for, because I do not dress it up. I say, this is my experience. I found this helps, this helps, this helps. This doesn't really work. Watch out for this. And people seem to love that, because in a way, that YouTube channel is a template in itself. It's a template to unification by one person's journey, really.
And where can we find you on YouTube?
Yeah, I'm under Raising Reality. So it'll be Raising Reality with Lindy Cowling, or Lindy Cowling at Raising Reality. You'll find me on either of those. Yeah.
And
yeah.
there's
I used to go under a different handle.
There's also quite a story then with that channel as well, because as over the years you've changed as a person, so it's quite an interesting journey
completely.
within your channel. So that's quite an interesting to look at that and seeing that change.
I mean, that's a really exciting thing as well. I'm going to be honest with you, I weighed up in the last year whether to continue with the YouTube channel, do something, go on to a completely different channel, because it represented a certain part of my story, which was very challenging. But then, I know we weren't going to talk about this, but I'll throw this in. On November the 19th last year, I died. I physically died. So on November the 19th last year, if you think of your soul as a flower, the fractal known as Lindy Cowling #1 died, left, and I came in. So I'm another fractal of the same flower. Now, you could say to me, is that a twin flame? Are you a twin flame to your twin flame? Well, it's along the same lines, because I'm the same soul, but I've dropped into this body. So I agreed to switch, because the other one had been through some enormous suffering, including the loss of her children and things like that, which ultimately, in the end, that soul fractal was a little bit like a petal that had been crushed, and that she couldn't do any more. So there were 3 fatal failures in her system, which meant it was time to go. And I didn't even know anything about walk-ins. This is what I love about life, is that I learn as I go along. It wasn't a preconceived idea. I rang my friends, told them all I was going to die in 3 days' time. They all fell apart. 3 days later, it happened. And one of my friends said, it feels like you've got a choice, and state a choice and say that you want to continue. And the last conscious thought I had as Lindy #1 before I died was, as I was going unconscious on the operating theatre, was take Lindy somewhere nice and let the higher one take it from here. And in my mind, I kind of half thought, oh, it's just to look after her during the operation, but I came in as another Lindy, and all my friends validated it. My friends were haunted by Lindy #1, because Lindy #1 was in a bit of a state of shock, didn't realise she died, had contacted her family just before the operation, and unfortunately it was unresolved. So she went with a lot of unresolved stuff. So I had to cross her over as this one. It was a bit like the film Ghost, when Whoopi Goldberg lets Patrick Swayze come through. I had to let her come through. We had a funeral for Lindy #1. That was my friend's idea. And Lindy #1 is actually very happy now and has transitioned, but she does not transition for the first 2 months. So then there's this soul fractal, which is similar to Twin Flames. I'm the same soul. I had to then grieve all the unhealed stuff and the death of myself, even though I knew myself was all right on the other side. Again, that's an extraordinary thing in itself, something I couldn't even make up, never was expecting to experience. But it has massive advantages in that I'm more balanced as this one. The things that are causing me pain aren't causing me pain. I don't have the emotional attachment to them. I don't have all the answers, but it's certainly more balanced and peaceful for me being in here than it was for her. So that's the story in itself, but it's also proof that there is no death. Consciousness doesn't end. I'm a representation of another version of me that's in this same body. So it's along the same lines again.
Can I ask a question? Because I'm really trying to keep up with you, and I want to bring it back to your death, or a spark of you that died, and Lindy #2 came in. Is that a similar principle to when we pass and we reincarnate? that part of Paul, when I die, stays there, heals, learns, grows back to the soul, connected completely, but another spark of me reincarnates.
It is, except it's all happening at the same time. So the whole mindset about we reincarnate, we go away for a bit and get chucked back, it's all happening at the same time, but it is the same kind of thing.
We conceptualize time, don't we? Because that's what we know. It's a human,
Yes.
we need it to have structure. So we just assume that what's gone past was in the past, and we assume what's coming in the future. And it's taken us a long time to get to this realization, because it can be a bit woo-woo for people, and I totally get it. But I think it's not whether you believe, guys. I think it's also about just maybe opening your mind to the possibility. And a lot of things that you hear is maybe just having that open mind. Because I always believe if you kind of open your mind to such ideas, it expands your consciousness, then you're opening to other inspiration. So I kind of want people to expand their ideas around that and just kind of sit with it and see what comes to you if you're inspired. But it's an interesting concept, and one that's recently I've heard of quite a lot, where somebody else walks into the same soul, or the same soul but another spark of them, and that seems to be quite a recent thing that's happening as well. And again, if that's been people have confirmed that, that's pretty amazing. That is pretty amazing.
Yeah, and I mean, I'd heard the term walk-ins before, and I never studied it. And I heard that it was a different soul that would inhabit someone's body.
Yeah.
I had no preconceived idea. I thought it was going to be pretty much, I was going to die that day. And I said a decision that I'll come back if things are different. I never in a million years realized a swap would take place. And it was strange because I had a near-death thing in January 2022. Like I said, I've had a quite a bumpy few years, but touch wood, hopefully the worst of that is now done. And I saw spirits, dead relatives around me. And so that was what I was expecting to see again on November the 19th, but that didn't happen. It went totally violet, all angelic. And like I say, the last conscious thought was, in a way, I guess I was given permission. I said, let the higher one take it from here. And then I came in different. So all my friends recognized it immediately before I did. Lots of things. I was travel sick all my life. I was no longer travel sick. I had no emotional connection to where I lived. Still don't. As if I'm in a box. I don't have any connection to this place. For the first 3 months, I was adamant I was changing my name. I did not want to be called Lindy Cowling. I absolutely didn't. But once we crossed over the other one, Lindy number 1, properly, and she was at peace, then I was fine with the name then. But till then, I was adamant. And there was lots of things my friends would say, you're more of the Lindy that we knew. You're not the same one. You're more. What they were actually saying is you're more whole, because I'm more unified than the other one. And if you ask if I remember where I came from, I have the last memory I had before I dropped into this body on November the 19th. I was off planet. I was looking out of like a rock formation that looked a bit like the Grand Canyon, but it's not. And it looked like a window, but it was a screen, not a window. I was about 150, a lot older than now. And it was one of my last memories before it was time for us to make the switch. And I don't remember anything else. I was humanoid. I was humanoid. You could say, was you seeing you from the future? Remember, past, present, and future are happening simultaneously. Yes, it could be me from the future, but I was definitely off planets. And that's the only memory I have, probably so I don't get distracted with that and focus on this one. But I came in like a stick of rock with one mission format: make Lindy happy. That's all I came in with. Make Lindy happy. I'm on the back end of my life now. I've got another shot at being in this body, and I have one mission format: make Lindy happy. The second I deviate from that, I get into trouble real fast. It's like my soul says, uh-oh, wrong operating instructions. So I have to stick to that if I want to stay in this body and want to stay on this earth. And I would say that's a very powerful message to give everybody, because how many times in our life do we ever follow that? I mean, I certainly didn't. I mostly put everybody before myself. And ultimately died for it in the end. And maybe that's why it's so strong in me now. But if we actually ask that question of all of us, how often are we actually happy? How often are we actually at peace? Some people might have a blessed life to be able to say, actually, I'm happy most of the time, and that's amazing. But I bet you bottom dollar, a lot of people listening to this will actually say, I've never actually thought of that. Am I actually happy? And when they're actually honest with themselves, they'll say, actually, I haven't been happy for as long as I can remember, and then it's looking at, okay, where did I go out of alignment with myself? And there's no blame or judgment in that, but where did life and the things of life rotate around me enough that I lost who I was, and it's a very empowering thing and a very simple thing, really. If you want to create different circumstances in your life, you have to be in a state of childlike joy. And that is also a stepping stone from happiness. What makes me happy? The energy of creation is childlike joy. And so it's getting back in touch with, do I feel joyful? And let's not pull any punches here. Life doesn't always make you feel joyful. You cannot make yourself feel that way when lots of things are coming down on your head. But it's tiny, tiny things to try and get to there. And I know that we can't make that leap. It is tiny steps. You can't get someone from despair to joy in 1 second. It's not going to happen, but they can maybe gradually be gentle little stepping stones towards that, whether it takes days, weeks, months, whatever, to just make tiny subtle changes in whatever lives we're in, because we're all in different kind of lives with different challenges. But what makes us powerful really is knowing that we are able to have an influence over our existing circumstances, no matter how much we think we aren't. We are. Your perception is everything.
Yeah.
What you perceive, you believe, and what you believe, you perceive. And that will amplify more yucky stuff or more good stuff. We just got to get in the habit of doing this.
Well, that's the true blessing in itself. If you can watch your thoughts and find that perfect balance, there is a level of inner child healing in all of this. And it is being
Absolutely.
of that childlike mind to create and be creative and be joyful and in that moment. But there is all these challenges. I believe we're kind of subscribing to the human experience, really, why we come here in the first place, because I'm told it's a difficult reality to love, to create love and to feel love and be loved. So there's a massive process there. I kind of wanted to touch on, how do we recognize, let's just say I'm in a twin flame relationship. How would I recognize if there's interference from lower energies? What can I do to stop it? And is it something that I can literally, like we said about, talking about setting our intention, who we are, watching our thoughts, can we come out of it away from being, I don't want to use the word attacked, but influenced more like? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen some people get quite entangled with it over the years. Some people have successfully managed to navigate their way mostly out of that, really, really quite successfully. And the main thing is it comes back again to your, I keep going back to that word sovereignty, and coming back to your heart, and really coming back to who you are, regardless of the noise and what's going on outside of you. And sometimes it is hard for people to tell if interference has taken place. For some people, it's clearer than others, because that interference can take place through other family members, not just the person you're connected with. So these negative forces can influence other family members or close friends to interfere. There's all sorts of ways that this can be done. But really, the great news here is, when this was largely happening to me, a lot of me was still largely unconscious, and the mass population were. But if you fast track 14 years later, the consciousness on this planet is doing things that is unprecedented. People are waking up so fast. So the overall frequency on the planet has risen. Yeah. So it was easier to target When you're down, feeling low in a third dimensional reality, you're an easy pickings. But when you're feeling low and we've tipped largely into 4, but believe it or not, despite looking around us at the illusion, we have actually tipped largely into 4. These energies do work through the 4th dimension, but it's much harder for them now because the information onto how to combat these MFs is to actually be more conscious, and more of the population are more conscious. So what I'm saying is this is going to get happening less and less, this negativity, because we're as a mass humanity raising so that you get to a certain level. These can't pick you off. They can't pick you off at the upper levels of 4th dimension. They can't pick you off above that. So everything is subject to change, and it is changing. Until then, it really is a question of, no matter what you think the connection is, no matter what the connection truly is I come back to, is it bringing me peace? Is it bringing suffering? Does something not feel quite right here? Something not adding up. If I didn't reach out for help in my process, I wouldn't be here today. I'm a big advocate of reaching out for help. You know, whether it's someone like me or someone else, be really discerning who you reach out to, because some of the people in the industry aren't always who they seem to be, and some are maybe thinking they're running a certain energy and not. But I'm a believer as you end up being drawn to where you end up for whatever reason that is, whether that's your journey and you have to learn that way or another way, the same as myself. And just keep walking it back to that. Does this bring me peace? Does this bring me happiness? Do I feel empowered by this connection? Do I feel like I've lost all my power? Do I feel ill all the time? You know, questions like this. And like I say, don't be afraid to reach out for assistance with that. You know, there are people out there that have blown the whistle on this from a different angle, you know, and along similar theories to me. All I can say is, for me, there aren't theories. It's experiential. So I've seen this stuff firsthand, up close and personal, the good, the bad, and the ugly, unfortunately. So I know this to be real. I've lived it. I've experienced it. But I've also seen the massive shift in consciousness to that less and less people now are getting, I'm going to say, targeted and caught up in these little minefields out there, because the overall population of human consciousness has risen. It will be something we talk about that as something that used to happen in the years ahead. You know, it's not as commonplace as it was now, even in the time that I've been in that industry.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on today. We've not quite finished, but around twin flames, is there something that we're not talking about that we should be?
I think what we need to talk about is, it really, again, we go back to the term twin flames. It really doesn't matter what label we put on this. Twin flames has taken over from the common saying of soulmates. Everyone used to talk soulmates, and we were predicting in 2014 everyone's going to be saying twin flames. Twin flames will be big business, and now it is. What we should really be saying is, whatever the name we give this connection is, does it really matter? It only matters if we can find signposts to help us through the process. Otherwise, this is a process to help me find out more of who I am, whether I am with that person, the twin flame, or whatever you want to call them, whether I'm with them or not. Does this make me more whole? Does this make me more balanced? Am I a better person as a result of it? That's the question we need to be asking ourselves. And if none of that is happening, you've either got tangled up somewhere, targeted somewhere, hijacked somewhere, or usually in belief systems, your pain body, places like that. There is absolutely light at the end of the tunnel. 1,000 times more light than there was when I originally began that process, because everyone's more conscious, and there are ways out of that so that you get back on track to finding out who you are and becoming more whole in yourself. Can we be with these people whole in ourselves? Absolutely. Conscious connection will be the connection that everybody has in the years ahead. We will all connect consciously, not just the few. And these are all paths towards it, but we need first to connect consciously to ourselves. Any of these spiritual connections send a huge, great arrow towards your own heart saying, who are you? Do you have that love for yourself and self-worth for yourself, that care for yourself? What are you really about? Like I go full circle, what I came in with as this one, make Lindy happy. That's my soul format. If we go away from what our soul is urging us to do, things get very difficult. And we'll find that in these years ahead as well, because now we're becoming more conscious. Anything slightly unconscious in us will be up there in our face, not to punish us, not to make us suffer, but to say, hold on a minute, you're going slightly out of alignment. This is your calling card, your signpost to get back into alignment again, and stand in the power and the love and the childlike joy and compassion that you really are.
That's a difficult one. That is such a difficult one, to stand in that power, which is that why we keep coming back and back around again?
That is why we are running thousands of Xbox realities at the same time that give you the conception, the misconception you're coming round again. That is, you're going to round in a cycle, really, all at the same time, thousands of times, to reach the point that I'm talking about. The good thing is we've now reached that point. We are now graduating. We're not in kindergarten anymore. As of humanity, we are graduating. And these cycles of evolution won't be running in the same way, because we'll be aware of everything, as Eckhart says, is in the now. It's all in the now. And we will run our consciousness differently, creating what is happening in the now, aware there is only now. And that's how I'm not capable of running my consciousness any other way now. I know it's all now. And so you value the now. Yes, there are not very nice things in the now, but you can't run from them. It's all in the now, all in the moment. Move through it and just become more of who you truly are. It sounds so blasé, but I've just done it for 24 years.
But there is an element.
It won't take anyone else 24 years. They'll do it a lot quicker than I did.
I don't know, because there's an element of self-mastery here as well. To be consciously conscious of who we are is a very difficult thing. And I would like to say to people, don't give yourself a hard time if you miss it, if you get it wrong. You know, it's that loving self. Your
people will stumble many, many times, the same as I did. And like I say, I don't do anything by half, so I usually do it in a spectacular fashion. But I've got to the stage where I just laugh at myself right now and have that love and compassion as like, you know what? You did the best you could. You're doing the best that you can. And I almost like laugh at it, really. You get out of that cycle of punishing yourself and almost have a different perception of it, really. Like I say, that's my punchline right now. Your perception is everything. What you perceive, you believe, and what you believe, you perceive. And if you can give all of that love that you're projecting towards the twin flame or whoever your connection is, and recycle that also back towards yourself, then regardless of the outcome, you will be more whole than when you went into that experience.
Yeah. Lindy Cowling, thank you so much for coming on Spiritual Talk.
Thank you.
We're also quite honoured because I've managed to twist your arm to come on to Spiritual Talk, but on our live home at SPTV, where people can interact, send their questions, and we can have another wonderful conversation, but driven by you guys at home, which is fantastic. So, but for now, Lindy, we will see you in the future very, very soon. But for now, thank you so very much.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Thank you.